Hi, I'm Riley. After 28 years of being a single dad, you'd think I'd have earned some respect from my son. But life has a funny way of kicking you when you're already down. I spent the afternoon getting my modest three-bedroom house ready for dinner. Nothing fancy, just the home where I raised Jason by myself after his mom split when he was 4. I made pot roast, his favorite growing up. The table looks a bit quaint, doesn't it? I suppose it has that charming hand-me-down quality. That was Diane, my son's mother-in-law, running her manicured finger across my dining table. The same one where Jason did his homework every night while I worked 2 jobs. It served us well for many years. I'm sure it has, though Jason seems to have adapted quite nicely to more refined surroundings since marrying Vanessa. I watched my son shift uncomfortably in his seat. 2 years of marriage into the Harrington family had changed him. Designer clothes, new accent, different friends. Dad's table has character, Jason said, but his voice lacked conviction. The roast is delicious, Riley, Vanessa said, my son's wife trying to be kind. She seemed nice enough, just young and influenced by her mother. Thank you. It was always Jason's favorite. I used to make it every Sunday, remember? After your baseball games? Jason nodded, mouth full, but his eyes didn't meet mine. Baseball? I thought you played tennis all through school, Jason, Diane said. No, that was after Dad couldn't drive me to baseball anymore. When I started taking the bus to the community center courts instead. The memory hit me hard. I'd had to take that night shift at the warehouse when Jason was 12, missed his games, did what I had to do to keep a roof over our heads after Caroline walked out. Speaking of sports, Diane said, dabbing her lips with my paper napkins that clearly weren't up to her standards. We should all continue this lovely gathering at my home tomorrow night. I'm having my chef prepare something special. Later at Diane's marble-floored mansion, I sat quietly while she showed off her art collection. Imported wines, vacation photos from the French Riviera. More roasted potatoes, Jason? I offered, noticing his plate was empty. No thanks. Diane's chef made them exactly how I like them. Perfect, actually. Diane smiled, her victory smirk barely concealed. You know, sometimes I really wish you had been the one to raise me, Jason said, looking at Diane. Things would have been so different. The room went silent. 24 years of sacrifices, of nights I went hungry so he could eat, of working overtime to pay for college applications, all dismissed in a single sentence. I need some air, I said quietly, placing my napkin beside my barely touched plate. As I stepped onto Diane's perfectly manicured patio, watching through the window as she patted my son's hand approvingly, something hardened inside me. The truth about Diane Harrington needed to come out, and I was just the man to make sure it did. I drove straight to Smokey's bar after leaving Diane's mansion. My hands were still shaking as I pushed through the door, spotting Marcus at our usual corner booth. 20 years of friendship meant he knew something was wrong before I even sat down. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, I just heard my own son say he wishes someone else raised him. Marcus whistled low. That's cold, man, even for Jason. It's not him, it's her, Diane Harrington. She's been working on him for 2 years, and I finally had enough. The fancy mother-in-law? What do you need? I leaned forward. Everything you can dig up. You still have those connections at the corporate investigation firm, right? For you, I'll call in every favor I've got. 3 days later, Marcus called me to meet at his office. He slid a folder across his desk. Your instincts were right. Diane Harrington isn't self-made. When Edward Harrington died, she convinced 3 of his business partners to sign over controlling interests by claiming her husband had verbal agreements with them. Can you prove it? Better. One partner, Thomas Whitley, kept recordings. He thought she might pull something. Listen. Marcus hit play on his computer. Diane, I don't recall Edward ever mentioning giving you voting rights to my shares. Thomas, darling, Edward and I discussed everything. He wanted me to guide the company after he was gone. Unless you'd prefer I share those photos from the Aspen retreat with your wife? Edward kept such detailed records. I felt sick. She blackmailed them all? Every single one. But that's just the beginning. Marcus showed me evidence that Diane had been calling my employers for years. 3 promotions I'd been passed over for. 2 job offers mysteriously rescinded. She's been systematically keeping you financially unstable. My mind raced. I need to talk to Caroline. Finding my ex-wife wasn't easy. She'd moved to Phoenix after leaving us. When I finally got her on the phone, her voice was guarded. Riley, it's been, 20 years? I need to know if you've had any contact with Diane Harrington. The silence told me everything. How much did she pay you? 50,000 to stay away from Jason. Said it would confuse him to have me pop in and out of his life. When was this? About 3 years after I left. I was broke, Riley, and she made it sound like it was better for him. My next call was to Peter, Jason's college roommate. Yeah, man, that lady would visit campus like twice a month, always talking about how you were struggling with some addiction. Said that's why you couldn't make it to his games in high school. Addiction? I worked night shifts to pay for his sports equipment. Sorry, man. She showed us pictures of some dude passed out that she said was you. Jason seemed to believe her. With Marcus's help, I set up a meeting with Thomas Whitley. He was nervous, but agreed to help. I've wanted to expose Diane for years. That woman destroyed Edward's legacy. I need something solid, I said. Thomas handed me a USB drive. This has everything. Recordings, emails, financial transfers. Be careful, Riley. She ruins people who cross her. She already tried to ruin me. Now it's my turn. I spent the next week gathering more evidence. Marcus helped me get copies of Diane's calls to my employers. I recorded Caroline confessing about the payoff. I even found Jason's old baseball coach, who confirmed I was at every game until I had to take that warehouse job. By Friday, I had a folder full of documents, recordings, and photos. The truth about Diane Harrington was finally coming to light, and I was going to make sure my son saw every bit of it. I set the dining room table with care, arranging the manila folders beside my plate. When the doorbell rang, I took a deep breath. Thanks for coming, I said as Jason and Vanessa entered. Still using those old placemats, I see. Diane swept in behind them, 15 minutes late. Some things are worth keeping. I poured coffee and pushed the first folder toward Jason. These are call records between Diane and Blackridge Construction from when they withdrew their job offer to me. Diane's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. What is this ambush? Open it, Jason. He flipped through the pages, frowning. Mom, why were you calling Dad's potential employer? I was simply inquiring about contracting work. 6 calls on the day they rescinded my offer. After 3 successful interviews, I played the recording. The HR director's voice filled the room. Mrs. Harrington insisted we'd regret hiring you. Said you had gambling debts. When she threatened to pull the Harrington accounts, our hands were tied. Diane stood up. This is slander. There's more. I pushed another folder toward Vanessa. These are the trust documents your father set up before he died, and these are the modified versions Diane filed later. Vanessa compared the papers, hands trembling. The beneficiary percentages are completely different. I'm supposed to get 40% at 30, not 5% at 40. Mother, what did you do? Financial matters are complicated, dear. Your father wanted me to protect you. From my inheritance? Vanessa's voice cracked. Diane reached for her purse. This breakfast is over. Before you go, Jason should hear this. I pressed play on the final recording. Caroline's voice filled the silence. She paid me $50,000 to stay away from Jason. Said it would be better for him. I needed the money, but Riley, I've regretted it every day since. Jason's face drained of color. You paid off my mother to disappear? All those years I thought she just didn't want me? She was a mess, addicted to— Stop lying. I slammed my hand down. Caroline had problems, but addiction wasn't one of them. You've been feeding Jason lies for years. I never missed a game until I had to take that warehouse job. You deliberately turned my son against me. Jason looked at the evidence, then at Diane, his expression hardening. Is this why you kept pushing me to reduce contact with Dad? I was protecting you from his instability, Diane insisted weakly. By sabotaging his career, paying off my mother, lying about his past? Vanessa held up the trust documents, her voice ice cold. And what was your excuse for stealing my inheritance, Mother? Diane staggered backward, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. The funds were complex. Edward would have wanted— Stop using Dad as your excuse. Vanessa slammed the documents down. You've been skimming for my inheritance for years. Dad, Jason pushed his chair back and came to my side of the table. I'm so sorry for what I said at dinner. I had no idea what she'd been doing. I nodded, the lump in my throat making it hard to speak. All those years you worked double shifts, I thought you were just being distant, when really, you were just trying to keep us afloat. I did my best, son. Your best was enough, more than enough. Jason grabbed me in a hug that took me back to when he was a teenager. Diane tried one last angle. Everything I did was to provide Jason with opportunities you never could, Riley. You should be grateful I stepped in. Grateful? Vanessa laughed bitterly. Mother, you're delusional. I'm calling our family attorney this afternoon. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Package delivered to Harrington Partners. Evidence received. You might want to check your phone, Diane. I believe your business associates just received some interesting reading material. On cue, Diane's phone erupted with notifications. Her face paled as she scrolled through them. What did you do? Her voice was barely a whisper. Sent copies of Thomas Whitley's recordings to all the Harrington business partners. The board meeting this afternoon should be interesting. Diane frantically dialed her phone. Robert? Robert, I can explain everything. Hello? Hello? She stared at her phone in disbelief. He hung up on me. 3 months later, and it's still the best decision I ever made, Jason said, as he carried the Thanksgiving turkey to my dining table, the same old table Diane had sneered at. Passing the sweet potatoes, Vanessa said, settling into her regular seat. After the revelation, she'd pushed through an emergency board meeting that removed Diane from all company positions. Heard anything from your mother? I asked, slicing the turkey. Not since the restraining order. The therapist says it's healthier this way. Vanessa shrugged. The trust has been restored to Dad's original terms, and the company's actually doing better without her sabotaging partnerships. Did you see that Society page article? Jason laughed. Diane Harrington, from socialite to social pariah. Let's not focus on her, I said, raising my glass. To family, the real kind. Speaking of real family, Jason glanced at Vanessa, who nodded excitedly. We've got some news. We're having a baby, Vanessa beamed. And we want you to be as involved as possible. I nearly choked on my wine. Really? After seeing what a dedicated dad you were despite everything? Absolutely. Jason reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Our kid's gonna need a grandfather who knows what showing up really means. As we clinked glasses, I thought about that terrible dinner at Diane's mansion. My son had wished someone else raised him, but now he wanted me to help raise his child. The truth had set us all free, everyone except Diane, who'd built her life on lies and was now watching it crumble from the outside, exactly where she belonged. What would you do if someone was secretly poisoning your relationship with your child for years? Would you gather evidence like Riley did, or would you have confronted Diane immediately when you first suspected something was wrong? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this revenge story where justice was finally served, hit that like button to help others find it too. And don't forget to subscribe for more compelling stories that explore the complicated relationships in our lives. Thanks for watching. I'll be reading your comments.